myself, but go ahead and tweet them out, and I'll try my best to get those asked. And you can tweet them to me at DeRose Tech. Or I think Royal Tiff is actually in the channel too, so I'll try and keep her window open. So if Royal Tiff forwards it to me on our super secret private DM, that'll work too.
All right, everybody. I know this is like the most exciting part of the whole conference that people have been waiting for is this raffle. Hope you still have your tickets if you came yesterday. Otherwise, that means day 2 people have a better chance of winning, and I'm going to be up here pulling empty numbers for a while. So we have a couple of different giveaways today. So the first 4 are koozies, because that's all I had to bring. So you get one of Coinstructive koozies. So every time you have a beer or soda, you can think of me and Coinstructive. So you're welcome. So the first one is 91070. Koozie for you. Just so you guys, just so it's fair and doesn't look like I'm pulling these. All right. All right, next koozie goes to 91014. No. All right, we're going to keep moving. And 91005. 005. Anybody? All right, moving on. We don't waste any time here. You claim it or we move. 91013. All right, maybe this needs a better shake. I need a bigger container. 080. 91080. Koozie for you. All right, we still got two koozies to go. 077. I don't think that was accurate, a real one. Anybody 077? Okay. 81, 081. Are these from the right side of the raffle ticket? 052, 052. All right, there's a lot of tickets in here, not as many people, so 010. I'm just going to start randomly calling out numbers. 020. 026. These are like yesterday numbers, so they're low. I need some high numbers from today. All right, 68, 068. I don't blame you. I got stuck with them too. 078. 78. Nobody. All right. 79. All right. Woo! Koozie for you. Welcome to the Koozie Club. 082. All right. The next item up is some Bitcoin artwork. All right, so it's signed and everything, so give it a good shake. Super official. And here we go again. 074. 074. Oh, you know what? I bet you I called my own number a while ago. No, I'm going to take myself out of the thing anyway. And 007, 007. Nobody. 003. 001. This has still got tape on it from the original, like it was when the roll was first started. 069, 69. All right. Bitcoin artwork to this gentleman. Sorry, no frame. And there's a QR code?
Show the camera over here too, so yeah.
All right. And the last item is a Bitcoin wallet. It's a Trezor. No, it's there. There's actually something in here, so it's not just a USB cable. Oh, all of a sudden now it's a Trezor. Now I want a raffle ticket. Nobody wanted a koozie. Well, 004. Any lucky people from yesterday? No. 018. 18. 11. A lot of these first day tickets. I know, right? 21. Ticket 21. Ticket number 9. 12. Two. Ticket number 2. Ticket number 8. 008. This is just as painful for me as it is for you people. 16. 016. 67. 067. Bingo. No? Nothing. 66? Oh, there we go. Woo! Somebody end this. This is all yours? Thank you. Yeah, open it up and show the camera. All right, we're going to bring up our speakers from earlier today and run a panel. So Michael Bright is going to fill in for Carl. They work very closely together, and he'll be able to help answer any of those questions along with our other speakers. So let's please welcome our former speakers and panelists up for this new section. Thank you. Here you go.
I worked there for 9 months, and I did a lot of their projections and financial stuff. Thank you. And so I'll be able to answer most of those questions if you have any questions about that.
All right, so first off, I'm just going to I'm going to go down the line here, and I'm going to let them reintroduce themselves in case you missed their talks this morning or earlier this afternoon. And then we'll open it right up to questions. So I know some of you people had some questions that we didn't get to earlier, so this will be the time to do that. So first, we're going to start off here with Rasa from Mycelium.
Sorry. Oh. Sorry, I didn't hear. We're introducing ourselves. I'm Rasa from Mycelium, the Bitcoin company.
Kevin McKernan from Medicinal Genomics.
Adela Tula-Forster from the Cogent Law Group.
And Michael Wright for Carl Lehrberger for Pure Hemp.
Do we have any questions to start off with?
The channel stream until tip. The people that are in the channel that want to ask questions, they can ask. I'll always say that too.
Okay. Where's the...
Tell the exotic people, tell Tiff what your questions are, and Chris will relay them.
Okay, cool.
You say that, so they can hear you.
People that are on the live stream right now, go ahead and ask questions and push it to Tiff, and then I'll relay those questions to the panelists, and then they'll answer them for you. All right. So there was one back here, Travis.
Question is, Mycelium is building an API system for plugins. Who do we talk to with regards to questions about the API if you want to plug in your currencies or services? Us directly, I guess. info@mycelium.com. I'm on Reddit, Bitcoin Talk, email, Twitter, pretty publicly available. Nothing is 100% secure, but obviously being a company that lets people hold their own money, we try to focus on it. You would be much more secure with Bitcoin if you used something like a Trezor, which you didn't win, or a Ledger, which is much cheaper. Ledger is another alternative, or if you have a Samsung, one of the more recent Samsung Galaxy phones, like I think 4, 5, 6, 7, there's a plugin that lets you convert your Samsung phone into a hardware wallet too. It's a Ledger Trustlet. Any non-Bitcoin questions?
So the question is, when it comes to cannabis, how has the intersection of cannabis and Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, is it happening? Is that pretty much? Yeah, I've never seen any hard data on that at all. Early on, do you have an answer? Do you have a good answer, sir? Oh no, somebody was raising their hand there, but I've not seen any good, serious information about the uptake. I think that early on, it kind of got a reputation to be a black market conversation, and so I don't know if it ever moved past that. We've heard of a few Bitcoin ATMs in dispensaries, but I've not actually seen them here in Colorado yet.
Depends on the hashtag.
If you're a lead hacksaw, you can probably smoke anything.
I want to add into the previous question that I think the key to getting more adoption of Bitcoin in the cannabis space, it's probably better going at the things that can trade below $10,000 that the growers can utilize as a bank. So a company like Scott that makes soil and is buying up hydro stores and buying up light companies is dedicated to going to this space. Once garden stores can take Bitcoin, I think that's what cascades it through the chain. It's really hard taking it bottom up and getting every user walking into a dispensary to have Bitcoin because there's not a lot of incentive for it. So I think we got to get it as a currency. And if it's under 10K, there's different AML KYC concerns. My experience with most people in the field when you bring up Bitcoin is a stigma thing, that why would I want to put 2 flags on my resume? I'm already dealing with banks hating me for cannabis, and now I'm going to put a Bitcoin sticker on, and I'm going to have a whole host of other financial institutions start looking at me. So I feel like most at the lower level of the chain are afraid of the stigma. But I think if we can get an overstock.com into someone like Scott or one of these big garden stores, I think that's when it starts to trickle through. No, I'd love an introduction if you're watching, though.
I'm wondering, does Home Depot or Lowe's qualify as a good garden store for this kind of stuff? Because if you have a lot of Bitcoin, there's an app called GYFT Gift that lets you buy gift cards directly through Bitcoin. So I've been using them for groceries from Target and home improvement stuff for Home Depot. Yeah. Thank you.
E-Gifter was just a shout out for.
I have a little bit more of an answer. This takes that conversation just one step beyond, and that is what would incentivize a dispensary owner to get into an ecosystem all of his own. And I really do believe that if you have a dispensary, within 2 to 5 miles is going to be 80% of their customers or patients. And if they wanted to create a reward system that rewarded people for getting into their ecosystem, for being a patient, a loyal patient to they could reward the patients. We've talked about this real briefly, and we talked about it yesterday, but it would take someone like a Bitcoin company owner to go have a conversation with that dispensary owner and say, hey, guess what? We could create a rewards program that their patients live inside the ecosystem. Once they buy into that system, and then they can keep upping into that system, then the owner has them as a more loyal customer. So loyalty cards really do work.
I have something to add. I just have something to add really quickly, something that kind of sticks out at me. You definitely want to keep your transaction limits low. You have 2 industries marrying, and they're both on teetering on the edge of regulatory acceptance. So, one of the main concerns I would have is maintaining my banking relationships, especially in a situation like that. So, you definitely probably want to implement a compliance program. Well, if your issues are bad on the cannabis side, I expect they're probably worse on the crypto side.
Repeat his question.
Sorry?
Our bank does not have any problems taking in money coming from this business.
For the crypto side? And you're certain about that?
We're getting U.S. dollars. We're getting U.S. dollars that we use to buy Bitcoin at a dispensary for U.S. dollars.
deal.
Do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, we should talk more about that. That's a very big deal. That's been a crux for the entire cannabis industry, is finding banks that are compliant with this, and maybe they should follow in the footsteps of the cryptocurrency space that's already traversed it.
The problems are huge in the crypto space. I mean, I can't even tell you how many clients that we've had who've had their bank accounts frozen, and they just get a check in the mail, no explanation, nothing. Most companies, legitimate companies that I know in the space, just have a sort of bank to bank to bank to bank pattern, because they do get shut down.
So at Bitfinex, you're not constrained like Coinbase might be to have more KYC and AML in it.
I mean, that's a jurisdiction issue. It depends on where that bank is. Certainly, I've seen cases where people have had their international bank accounts shut down. There are these things called tax information exchange agreements, where countries share information of U.S. Users, like people from the United States, like doing business in the country, and that goes all the way to like the financial institutions, which would include banks. So, you would definitely, if you're doing business with another country, a bank in another country, you want to find out if they're part of a treaty for tax information exchange agreements.
Online question?
I got an online question. What do you guys think of Potcoin?
I'm the cannabis guy. That has to go to you.
It says pot in the name. It should go to you.
What was the question?
How old are you? I mean, that is like freaking old. Is that Bitcoin talk stuff or? Okay. Nice to hear from the veterans.
Yeah.
Is it still a thing? I guess maybe it trades. I don't know. It's a Dogecoin. It's a little more high, I guess.
Is there no bank anywhere setting up deliberately and openly to serve this new increasing people?
Well, that's my question. I've been asking this question to people, like, why not just get together and like start a bank? Silvergate? Okay. Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah, I've heard of them.
But they're in Silicon Valley. I think that they're taking out some of this Bitcoin kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I just spoke to a client. We just spoke to a client like 2 days ago who had to show Silvergate their compliance policies, a very small exchange. So I mean, I just don't understand why people in the space aren't getting together and like, rocking out a bank that's that accepts users in the space.
No, don't put me in a spot. What do you think about Potcoin?
Well, and so the question is, how are cannabis companies doing their banking? Let's step it up to that, because that's kind of the question. And generally, with the very large national banks that are FDIC insured, and that's going to be a problem for them. And because while it's still a Schedule 1, it's going to be a problem for the really large companies, the Visas, the American Expresses, Chase Bank, Wells Fargo. They're not going to touch it, generally speaking. By the time you get to a state chartered bank or a credit union, it kind of depends on whether or not they're set up for that. If it's a brand new organization, getting the link to the Federal Reserve is the challenge. So that's why locally here there was something called Four Corners Credit Union. And Four Corners was basically shut down in Kansas City because it wasn't shut down, it just wasn't given the right to operate by the Federal Credit Union Organization. I forgot the name of it. Yeah, the charter. And so they weren't given a charter. So that's the real challenge. But some of the other smaller banks, they may take that risk. Their board of directors may say, yeah, sure, why not? You know, so.
So I got a question for Kevin around the medical side as it relates to pharma and how, if you could maybe touch on what the pushback is that you see for the cannabis industry, and what kind of a pushback you're getting from the pharma industry, and where those two kind of clash.
So yes, there are instances now in the news about certain pharmaceutical companies that are involved with fentanyl patches lobbying against the legalization of cannabis in Arizona, for instance. These same companies are also pursuing cannabinoids. They have an IND out for bringing CBD through for seizures, but a synthetic form of it that's different than what GW has. Roche is frequently presenting at the International Cannabinoid Research Society on an entire combinatorial chemistry pipeline they have for targeting just the CB2 receptor. So pharma has their eye on this as something they want to get into. I think it's a little bit of a conspiracy as to how much they're fighting it. There's certainly the opiate players that are concerned, but the ones that are recognizing that this is the most common receptor in our body are figuring something out. And so you'll see GW in the market. You'll see other ones like Corbis Pharmaceuticals that are bringing out, I think they're in phase 3 on a version of THC that doesn't get through the blood-brain barrier, but does hit CB1 and CB2 peripherally. So there's a play there. I don't really know which market's going to emerge. They're probably going to be co-evolving together, where there's going to be a nutraceutical market, much like the vitamin market we have with regulated differently through the FDA, and that will represent more of the dispensaries, and then folks that continue to try and put some versions of this through an FDA-like review. The latter are always going to have that kind of intellectual property-based model because of the price of the FDA.
Anybody else with any questions? I know somebody had a question for Carl earlier about we had to cut off. I don't remember if anybody remembers that, what they were going to ask. Adela, would you mind talking about the regulatory issues around the on and off ramps? Like just kind of like where the pain points are as far as coming in and out, like what, and you don't have necessarily, this is not tax advice, but like where are some of those issues that trigger certain events for people that they need to be aware of, maybe from regulatory or compliance or even just a monetary triggering standpoint?
So like as a user? Yeah. I can give I can give like a use case for that actually. So we had a client come in who was doing very large transactions, and we're seeing a lot more of that just doing trading. And of course, as per FinCEN, he doesn't need to adopt a compliance policy or do AML KYC. However, his bank, who had noticed these large transactions, said, look, you need to come back and show us an AML KYC policy. So it's a very precarious thing to do because there's no law or rule that says this person needs to do this. But a bank who is not a regulatory body is asking a client to show these things so they could keep their bank account. So even though it was a bit of a quagmire for us, we still did a compliance program for him. He was able to keep the bank account. He's our firm and their compliance department had to have a very big conversation. So there's that. Another question that I get all the time is taxes. What do I need to do to show my earnings in Bitcoin or losses? Well, you need to talk to a Bitcoin tax professional because you do need to file your taxes. The IRS considers Bitcoin property, so you need to reflect your gains and your losses, and you need to have a basis. So at the time of transaction, you need to record the price of Bitcoin. For companies, I would ensure before starting operations, speaking that I, had spoken to like a professional in the space on what to do, what not to do. We have seen companies start businesses and get shut down or get cease and desists because, they needed to implement compliance programs or register with a certain federal agency and had not. And we have seen this on the state and federal level. So, those are the things that really kind of stick out as far as frequency of issues.
What is the benefit by converting at the time of receiving?
Are you talking about taxes?
Yeah.
What are the benefits?
What is the benefit of converting to cash, fiat, or tax benefit?
Tax benefits. I mean, I don't know if there's any. Well, no capital gains, but that's the obvious one. I mean, I don't I don't really see why anybody would change their patterns of behavior, to mitigate the taxes because there's still, because it's taxed as property, you're being taxed at a lower rate than a currency.
So the question is, do you know of anyone who's been audited for their Bitcoin transactions, essentially, right? For not reporting?
The short answer is yes. So I would definitely keep good records and speak to a Bitcoin tax professional. Short answer.
Was this a large business entity type thing or a small? Okay.
So, Kevin, on the genetics and the scientific side of cannabis, what have you seen as some of the larger institutional or like industrial players? What is their interest to get more involved in the science? Do they have any like? Do they put any funds towards R&D in the space as like a co-op thing to help drive the community? Is there anything like that going on, or is there anything specific that you can kind of talk to about that?
There are. Just as you're seeing VCs emerge in the Bitcoin space, you're seeing similar patterns happen in the cannabis space. There are a few incubators. There's Canopy Boulder, there's ArcView, there's I believe there's one that just opened up in San Francisco as well, where they are beginning to collect funds to move into the industry. Peter Thiel put some money into a group called Privateer. That's like a private equity investment group that's put money into Tilray and Marley's work and Leafly. So there's those are beginning to emerge. I think on the pharma side, I think they're just sitting on many of them maybe just sitting on the sidelines waiting for clarity in the law. I think the larger they are, that's kind of their position. But you're certainly seeing the equipment company that sell the picks and shovels are marching in. So if you're selling HPLCs or gas chromatographs or machines that do extraction or mass specs that look for pesticides, that Cohen report came out suggesting that's going to be a $500 million market, and so you have the likes of Thermo Fisher and many other large life science players marching steadily in. You probably have a good opinion on this as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of picks and shovels types companies that are making bank right now. Notably, the packaging industry. If you owned a company that made packaging before, and you can apply your wares to this industry, they're doing very well because as regulations clamp down and child-proof and child-resistant packaging is necessary and needed for different municipalities, these companies are having to change and change again and change again and change again. And so there's a lot of waste right now as they try and figure out what they're going to do with the industry. But they're doing really well. Nutrient companies, grow facilities, all sorts of picks and shovels. Not to say that the people who handle the plant are doing fine. They're doing well. They're taking the brunt of the 280E IRS rules, and that's going to be the major problem, is they can only deduct whatever's in their cost of goods sold, and that's it. Nothing past that, no OpEx or anything like that, so or CapEx for that matter. So it's a real problem. But nonetheless, it's a healthy industry. They're doing fine. If you can get to and through the regulations and the compliance, you're good.
So Bitcoin has also had its picks and shovels moments. So I don't know if any of that struck a chord with you, Rasa, as far as maybe seeing some of the similarities between what this industry is going through and what Bitcoin went through and continues to kind of go through. And if you can, I mean, to put you on the spot, but do you think you could provide some analysis perhaps on what happens with picks and shovels and how that ends up turning out?
Well, fortunately, the picks and shovels for growing and packaging and reselling plants have been around for centuries. So you're just repurposing those picks and shovels for new stuff as opposed to creating something brand new from scratch where some company might take your money, promise delivery in 2 weeks, and then never deliver or deliver like way later when it's totally worthless. So that's my opinion on it.
I think in Antonopoulos' terms, the private hard security has been around for ages, but digital security is very young. I think agriculture has been along for almost as long as hiding stuff under rocks.
Yeah.
All right, a couple of questions from online.
Guest 1154 wants to know, how is the alcohol industry will deal with cannabis once it's fully legalized?
So guest 1154 wants to know about the
How is the alcohol industry will deal with cannabis once it's fully legalized?
how will the alcohol industry deal with the cannabis industry once it's completely legalized? As it pertains to taking away from their proceeds, or adding it to alcohol products?
Yeah, I would say you can entertain yourself in many different ways at the same time.
Spoken like a true anarchist. I think we're at the fourth stage of denial, which is right before then you win. They fight you.
I think smart companies always find ingenious ways to partner up or, capitalize in situations like that. And there's always a stubborn ones, who, they stamp their hands on the table. They're lobbying, to the government because they just don't like the changes. But I think, the companies that do accept the change and act accordingly will thrive. It's a big space.
That was really very well spoken. That was exactly right. A current answer, because the question was framed in the future, it's already happening. It's already there. So you can find, I know of at least 3 different kinds of hemp beer that you can get access to right now. Vodka is the next most obvious thing because Carl mentioned in that chemical loop, you can go from a C6 sugar to an ethanol. Ethanol, you're gonna get, if by the time you distill it, you're gonna get to a 190 proof. You dilute that down and you wind up with a vodka. So you're already there. Problem is that's not what's happening well, it's not a problem. The thing that's happening right now is that they're taking regular vodka and then infusing it with some kind of hemp seeds or hemp oil or something like that. And so that's what's happening right now. So most of the hemp vodkas, to my knowledge, are not pure hemp ethanol. They're infused. That hemp ethanol is coming, though, without a doubt.
So the other detail is there's really good literature on cannabidiol helping from neurotoxicity from alcohol. So it's probably wise to have it in every drink. It's the best thing for your liver.
So it's healthy for you. It helps. It aids in your alcohol consumption. Your body will benefit from it. Yeah, right. Here.
No, not any existing legacy banking ATM network. Say I run into a guy that owns 100 ATMs already. Do you know if any applications or software programs to update that ATM network so that not only can he deal in the fiat, but he can instantly have Bitcoin too, instead of having to set up specific ATMs that are only Bitcoin?
You want to? Well, I mean, yeah, I actually, I've been working with some Bitcoin ATM companies, but if you'd like to come up, and why don't you come up and speak, because if you're back there, no one can really hear you on the microphone. We got to record it, so come on up. Yeah.
My name's Zane. I work for Bitfinex. But this is actually something that I've thought a lot about because I lived in Asia for the past five plus years, and in Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand. As soon as 23. As soon as you arrive in the country, you can go to any ATM. Like in Philippines, I think they have it across several banks, and right at the airport when you get in Manila. You can go up to the ATM, and you get a code from coins.co.ph, which is a great company. If you guys are ever in Philippines, check them out, and withdraw money right from that ATM. It takes maybe 5 minutes to go from sell to cash. Vietnam, I know Bitcoin Vietnam did something similar. I can't remember if it's still around, but I know that they did it quite similar in Thailand. That's actually how I got it out that's how I got my money out most of the time. Was, well, they have it at 7-Elevens, but that's more for Thai nationals. They also, actually in Thailand, I was making money off of it because the fee was 50 baht, so a little, no, it wasn't even 50 baht, I think it was 30 baht, so a little under $1, but the spread between the U.S. market, It was a fixed cost. It's coins.ph and coins.co.th, which is the Thailand version of that company. And yeah, so if you use them, you can withdraw from, they have several banks that you can do it through. And you just go up to any of the ATMs, you put in a number, and it gives you the cash. And they have CRS, a cash recycling system, and so you can go the other way with it as well. They have ATMs for you to deposit money. You deposit money, it goes to the exchange's account, and they instantly credit you with Bitcoin. So you, instead of having to fight the first mover advantage of the ATMs already being ubiquitous, you get to use that to your advantage. And so I think the Bitcoin ATMs, it just takes a lot longer to roll out. But I think the problem that you'd see in America is that the banks aren't going to be willing to work with you because you're a Bitcoin company, where in Asia, they are a lot more likely to work with you.
Thanks for your input. We really appreciate that. So, I think the short answer really is that yes, you can repurpose existing technologies in an ATM to, or add some things to it, but really there has to be some software that needs to be written, right, to work with that, and then you need to establish the banking relationship that will even allow you to do that. So I think that there's more of an issue right now of repurposing those machines than at least here in the United States. Huh?
So I met these guys in Dubai at launching Kina thing, and they said they put their software on the first 400 ATMs that were already there. They just updated the software to do fiat and Bitcoin, and it went for a month or two before Dubai shut it down. And I didn't know if anybody else was doing that, or if I should hire these guys and go to the Philippines and hire those guys.
The way that they ended up doing it is a lot of these ATM networks have just e-transfers, and all it does is it gives you a code. And so you could do this if you want to do fiat to fiat, which is where the original purpose. But then these Bitcoin companies come in and they find out, okay, we can do fiat to fiat. The moment we get the alert that we've received the fiat, we'll send out the Bitcoin, or flip it, we take the Bitcoin first, and then we'll send you the code. And so it required zero repurposing. It didn't require any other software updates. All it is it's using the ATM's existing capabilities and porting it over to be useful within the Bitcoin ecosystem.
You're saying they're not. You're saying that ATMs are not specifically related to a bank. They're just the ATM network is its own network system.
No, it is a bank. So I think the one in Thailand was Krungsi Bank, KRUNGSI, it's a blue bank that everybody used for theirs, and then Philippines has their own banks that do it. But well, the exchanges are the ones that are doing it. What they do is they have a bank account, right? The bank would have a bank account. And then when somebody sends money to that bank account from the ATM, it'd be like anybody sending fiat to anybody else. It's a normal transaction as far as the ATM and the bank goes. But as soon as they receive that money, the exchange would offer you the exchange service. They exchange it to Bitcoin for you, and they give you the Bitcoin. And since the transfers in a lot of Asia are instant, the entire process barely takes any time.
Cool. Well, I mean, we're up against your time, so we'll take a few more questions, and then we'll
Here. Do you see altcoins becoming a significant portion of Bitfinex's revenue within the next 2 years?
So first of all, I'd rather not I don't understand what that has to do with this conference. I'll answer it, but I don't see the relevance. In June, we did $140 million in 1 day in Bitcoin. You can look at any other alt market; it's not even close. So no, Bitcoin is by far we did 140,000 Bitcoin in a day. In June alone, our volumes from Bitcoin crushed any other altcoin. And you might see spikes in Ethereum or Ethereum Classic or Monero or something where they have 1 day that gets to 100,000 Bitcoin, and that's only on one exchange. Whereas in Bitcoin, it destroys the transaction volume of any other altcoin by a massive amount. It's not even comparable. So no.
Will you be listing rare Pepe cards?
Will I be listing what?
Rare Pepe cards.
Pepe cards, only the rarest. Only the rarest.
Are you using Alpha Point as your trading engine? Are you using Alpha Point as your trading engine currently?
Again, I do not see the relevance on Alpha Point to a crypto cannabis conference at all. But no, if you would have looked at any of our postings, we have been very vocal about ditching Alpha Point in August of 2015. So that's like a year and a half old and not relevant.
This might be an OPSEC thing, but is your backend written in PHP?
That's a ha 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 ha. That's a good one.
Another one for you, and then we'll move on to one more question. What are the demographics of your customer base? Who is trading? What age? What geography? Institutional investors or individual?
Okay, again, this is public information, and I'm not going to answer any more questions about this because it is not pertinent to this conversation at all whatsoever. If they want to ask me any questions, I am constantly online. I have a very strong online presence. They can do so at any time. Doing it at this venue is not appropriate.
Do you have any relationship with something like Chainalysis, like Coinbase does, where you try to track whether somebody uses the money to buy like weed or something?
Do we have a relationship with Chainalysis? Yes, we've worked with Chainalysis. We're currently working with Chainalysis. I think you guys can all figure out why. And two, no. Once people send Bitcoin out of our platform, that's their Bitcoin. That's yeah. We don't do no. To answer your question.
Okay, this one comes from an anonymous person. For you, Michael, what are the externality costs of the marijuana industry on local taxpayers, and what do you believe to be the best way to redress those expenses? Externality costs are the costs imposed upon the society other than the individuals buying and selling. So in a traditional argument, which I don't believe, you probably don't believe, you have at the very least losses caused by individuals who are not like outputting at their full optimal output because they're like high, say. Or maybe there's like drug addictions where like people aren't saving for retirement because of weed. Like those would be traditional externality costs, but in addition there might be like pollution or these types of concerns. So in your mind, what are the externality costs of the marijuana industry today in the Colorado state, and what are the best ways to offset those expenses to the taxpayer?
Chris loves to ask this question. It's from Chris, because I didn't see it in the channel.
You think you just made that one up, huh? Just I'm not going to be able to give an exhaustive answer on that because it would take a really long time. You have to go through a cost-benefit analysis, on a societal level to answer that in a legitimate way. And, you can take small anecdotal data points and make a case going either direction. I really believe that. I'm not trying to dodge the question. Well, okay, a little bit maybe. But, there's a lot of companies who have chosen to say, if you're high, if you're drunk, you're not going to work here. That's a legitimate concern. There are many job classifications that require you to have full control of all your faculties. And whether or not an intoxication effect is going to affect your job performance, that's not for the person to decide, it's for the company to decide, to say nothing of the governmental employee or whatever. I think we have had pretty good, with certain exceptions, pretty good track record in the state of Colorado as far as driving while intoxicated one way or the other. Okay, so those who are intoxicated with alcohol or prescription medications, you're going to be able to identify them. Sometimes right now with the technology that's available, it's not as easy to tell if someone is intoxicated with marijuana. That technology is coming up the curve really quickly. There are at least 3 different companies that I know of that are working on the technology to help law enforcement to make those decisions in the field or not, up to and including the starting your car thing, so blow in. So there's a lot of that going on. Does the wonderful promise of enhanced tax revenue to solve all problems, fiscal and other, does that outweigh the cost to society? I'm not the right one to ask.
What about the cost to adjacent states?
Let me chime in on some of the costs as well, because I think we started off with a straw man on this, which is that the assumption that people who are high are less productive. There's a lot of assumptions in there. There was a paper that came out from McLean Hospital just yesterday that demonstrated CBD, often found in cannabis, actually has a reduction in schizophrenia and benefits cognitive performance. Okay, so you could argue this is a performance-enhancing drug. So let's talk about the societal damages to performance enhancement, because that is one side of the distribution of patients. Yeah, there are some that will get intoxicated in driving their car, and that's unfortunate. But we've also seen studies showing that stoned drivers are safer than drunk drivers. And so they tend to drive 10 miles an hour slower, and you know what? Speed, velocity is everything in terms of energy and the impact. There have also been cases where people with ADHD, this is a very small N number in this study, but they were better drivers in driving simulators when they were stoned or had THC. I'm not going to say that they were stoned, I'm going to say they had THC than when they did not. And what that demonstrates is that some people have a neurochemistry imbalance that this just normalizes, and they're not necessarily stoned if they can drive a car better in a simulator. So I think a lot of this is puritanical crap, and we have to take it down to a more personalized level.
I was just going to talk about that. Well, you can
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think you're take it, because I think Uber and self-driving cars changed the discussion entirely.
Actually, I asked the Lyft driver this on the way over here today. What were not being from the Colorado area and being in California and wondering when this becomes legal, what types of side effects is society going to see, right? And he goes, I asked my friend who's a cop, and he was totally against it. He's like, we're going to see more crime, we're going to see X this, and all this is going to happen. And he asked him 6 months later, his cop friend calls him back and says, so I was totally wrong. Crime's down, violent crime is down, domestic violence is way down. So people aren't beating their spouses or significant others anymore. As much. There's been a lot of what he saw was good societal benefits. He doesn't drink or partake in any cannabis, but he voted for it, and he said that he thinks it's been a great thing for the area. So, from a person who lives and works and doesn't partake, has seen real benefits, and someone who thought it was going to be very negative and works with, criminals, thought it was going to turn out one way, and it turned out the complete opposite way of how he thought it was going to turn out. So I think there has been some really good external benefits.
Apparently, so I use the word externalities a lot. Apparently they're having a drinking game in the channel, and I think that some of these externality questions are geared towards the drinking game. Yeah, be easier on your liver, guys. Smoke some CBD.
So, here's a rhetorical question, right? At least something to think about. So, did regulation sort of internalize the externalities and, sort of inclusive of, those that would have had the unintended loss or, repercussions?
Michael's answer is correct. So Michael's answer, I think, is absolutely correct.
The government, did they internalize these externalities by regulating?
did they internalize the externality costs by regulating it? Well, externalities are really hard, really hard, because they're macroeconomic effects, I think. So did they internalize those costs? Meaning, did they absorb those costs? Like that, I think what you're asking is the cost to remediate these expenses, were they just absorbed by the government? That is an externality, though, I think. Like, it doesn't mean that that cost goes away. That means that they have to reflect that either in reduced output in their other programs or by increasing the tax to citizens, which is then a circle of the externality, I would say. The other thing, too, is that like where externalities get weird, I think, in this context is what happens to neighboring states, because Colorado now has legal marijuana, but that increases enforcement costs on neighboring states who have nothing to do with that law, theoretically.
So I think that's where you see it, it's in the neighboring states.
That's what I think so, too, probably. Although you want to, yeah.
And you may or may not be familiar with the lawsuit that the Attorney General of Nebraska and the Attorney General of Oklahoma got together and filed against the state of Colorado, which was summarily dismissed. That is what the law enforcement agencies of that jurisdiction are there to do. Okay, so now having said that, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's really a jurisdictional conversation, because if you get a kid who comes across from North Platte and he drops into Log Lane Village or wherever and he grabs a couple of grams and he runs back home and he drags Main Street and they're hired in a kite and they run into something or other, and then, where'd you get that pot, son? I went to Log Lane Village, sir. Okay, well, first off, in that jurisdiction it's illegal, son, so don't be doing that, okay? Second thing, and I'm saying son over the age of 21 because we've been proven time and time again that the bud tenders and the dispensaries are absolutely holding to those laws. They do card every single time you go in. I mean, they're absolutely, and they shoo off the kids all the time. So that's been, but all of those externalities have been tested again and tested again. And quite frankly, one of the reasons I was so waffly on my question is because there's so many of those, and they get reported in the Denver Post by the Cannabis, which is a phenomenal resource. I mean, so if you want real hardline answers to that question, go to www.cannabis.com, and you can find all those answers to all those things. It's very, very, very well documented, and I'm not here to be able to do that. I do have an externality that I do like to put in accent, if you will, and that is that 400 people a year in the United States die in their bathtubs. But none die from cannabis that we know of. Same thing. I'm doing this in a humorous way, even though it's not coming off humorous. But anyway, but a lot of people, 40 people, right, is it 420 yet? It is, it's 19. Check that out.
Oh, how awesome.
This guy rocks it, I tell you what. And there's a mass exodus headed for the door. Bye now. 40 people this year will die of coconuts bashing their skulls in. How many die from cannabis? Like that. So anyway, that's just a silly way to do it.
Actually, with your example, I was thinking, what about the externality of actually keeping it illegal, whereas with funding Mexican gangs and all the drug wars and stuff? And in that same case, with what you said about the cross-border, is this an externality from Colorado legalizing it, or is this just an increased externality caused by the other state actually still keeping it illegal?
Yeah, that's a classic Bastiat question of the seen and the unseen, okay? The unseen is that those police officers aren't chasing rape cases. What's the externality cost of that?
Yeah, well, do we have more questions in the audience? Should we dismiss for 420 time, and then come back and do my presentation? Because my presentation is the last one of the day, I think. Yeah, let's do a break. I gotta use the bathroom anyway. I'll set up my presentation, and then we'll come back here and see you post 420. Yeah. Yeah, give it like 10, 15 minutes or so. I'll let you guys know when I'm starting again.